Right now, somewhere on the planet, a machine has just written a sentence, and another, and another. In the time it takes you to read this one short line out loud, the big AI systems together have produced more words than every book in a small town library. Not in a year, in about a second. Stop and let that sit for a moment. Roughly 1 trillion words a day pour out of these systems. 1 trillion. That is more language than all of humanity wrote by hand and by printing press across whole centuries of history. And every single one of those words is being made by something that, not so long ago, could barely string a sentence together. So here is the question hanging over all of it. The one your uncle asks at dinner. The one a student whispers before choosing what to study. The one a parent thinks about at 2 in the morning while their child sleeps down the hall. Will AI replace jobs? Will it replace yours? That is the question we are going to walk into together slowly, from the ground up, and I promise you, by the end, you will not just have an opinion. You will understand the actual machinery underneath the fear. You will see what is really moving, what is staying put, and why the honest answer is stranger and far more interesting than either the people shouting, "Robots are coming for everything," or the people shrugging, "It's all just hype." Let's start where every 12-year-old already lives. Let's start with a job. Think about a job you know well, not a fancy one. Picture the person who makes your coffee in the morning. What do they actually do? It feels like one thing, doesn't it? They make coffee. One word, one job. But watch closely. They greet you. They read your mood. They remember you like oat milk. They take your money. They grind the beans. They steam the milk. They wipe the counter. They calm down the grumpy customer at the back. They reorder supplies when the cupboard runs low. They train the new kid on Tuesday. That is not one thing. That is a bundle. A job is a bundle of tasks all tied together and handed to one human being, mostly because until now, it was cheaper and simpler to have one pair of hands do all of them. Hold on to that idea, because it is the secret key to this whole episode. A job is not a solid block. A job is a bundle of tasks. And here is the thing nobody tells you. AI does not arrive and grab the whole bundle. AI reaches in and pulls out a few tasks at a time. Now I want to give you the picture. We will carry the whole way through. Imagine a river running down a hillside. The water is the work, all the tasks of the world flowing along, finding the easiest path. For years the river has run in one steady channel, and along the banks people have built their lives, their houses, their routines, right where the water flows. Then a rock falls into the river, a big one. That rock is a new technology, and here is what water does when a rock falls in. It does not stop. It does not vanish, it finds new channels. It splits, it slows here, it rushes there. It carves a fresh path around the obstacle. The total amount of water is roughly the same. But where it flows, that changes completely. AI is the rock, the work is the water, and the whole question of will it replace jobs is really the question of where the river goes next. So let's follow the water. To do that, we need to understand the rock itself. What actually is this thing we keep calling AI? Because if you do not know what kind of rock fell in, you cannot guess which way the water will turn. Here is the simplest true thing I can tell you. The AI everyone is talking about is, at its heart, a machine that predicts the next piece. That's it. You show it the beginning of a sentence, and it guesses very, very well what word should come next. You show it the start of a melody, it guesses the next note. You give it a half-written line of computer code, it guesses the rest. It feels like magic because it is so good at it. But the engine underneath is prediction. Pattern, then guess. Pattern, then guess. Like a friend who has read so many stories that the moment you say, "Once upon a time," they already know what is coming. Now, how did it get so good? This is where we go one level deeper, because this is where the jobs question really lies. The machine learned by reading. Not a few books. Practically everything humans have ever written and put online, mountains of it, trillions of words. And as it read, it was quietly playing a game, billions of times a second. Cover up the next word, try to guess it, check the real answer, adjust. Cover, guess, check, adjust. Over and over, until it could feel the grooves and patterns in human language, the way a river feels the shape of the land. And here is the strange part, the first little twist of the night. Nobody programmed it with rules about grammar or facts or reasoning. Nobody sat down and typed, "Coffee costs $3," or "Paris is in France." It was never given the rules. It just reads so much that the patterns emerged on their own, the way a path appears across a field after enough people walk over it. No one drew the path. The walking drew it. So now you have this rock, a pattern, and guess machine that soaked up the shape of almost everything we have written. Drop it into the river of work, and ask the real question. Which task does it pull out of the bundle? Let's reason it out from first principles like detectives. The machine is brilliant at patterns in language and images and code. So the task it grabs first will be the ones that are mostly about patterns. Writing a routine email, summarizing a long report, drafting a first version of almost anything, sorting, sketching, suggesting, translating, tidying up code. These are the tasks where the answer mostly follows a familiar shape, and the machine has seen that shape a million times. But notice what it does not grab. It does not carry the cup to your table. It does not feel the room go tense and step in. It does not take responsibility when something goes wrong. It does not decide what matters. It does not look a worried person in the eye and earn their trust. Those tasks are still sitting in the bundle, untouched, even after the machine has scooped out the easy ones. So picture what actually happens inside a real job. The bundle that used to be 10 tasks for one person. Now maybe 4 of those tasks get done in seconds by the machine. And here is where most people stop thinking and where they get scared. They say, if 4 out of 10 tasks are gone, then nearly half the job is gone, so soon the whole job is gone. But that is not how the water moves. And this is the heart of it, so let me slow right down. When the machine takes 4 tasks off a person's plate, one of 3 things happens. Stay with me, because this is the real machinery of will AI replace jobs? And almost nobody explains it cleanly. The first thing that can happen is the river just moves faster in the same channel. The person now does the same job, but quicker, because the boring tasks vanished. The lawyer who used to spend hours reading documents now reads the machine's summary in minutes and spends the freed up time on the parts only a human can do, like sitting with a frightened client and choosing the strategy. The job survives. It just changes shape, more of the human part, less of the grind. The second thing that can happen is the river carves a brand new channel. Because the work got so cheap and fast, people suddenly want a lot more of it. This sounds backwards. So here is a true old story to anchor it. Long ago, weaving cloth was done by hand, slow and dear, so only the rich had much of it. Then machines made weaving wildly faster, and you would think every weaver lost their job forever. And many did, painfully, for a time. But cloth became so cheap that ordinary people started buying far more of it than ever before. The total demand for cloth exploded, and the number of people working in and around fabric and clothing, over the long run, actually grew. The water did not disappear. It found a much bigger valley to fill. And the third thing that can happen, the hardest one, is that the channel really does dry up. For some bundles, once the machine takes the core tasks, there just is not enough human work left to hold a job together, and that job genuinely shrinks or fades. This is real. It has happened before. It will happen again. We are not going to pretend it away. Pretending is how you get hurt by a river. So which of the 3 happens? That right there is the whole game. And here comes the twist that almost nobody sees coming. The twist is this. Whether AI replaces a job depends far less on how clever the AI is, and far more on something nobody finds exciting. It depends on the boring parts of the bundle, the leftover tasks, the ones the machine cannot touch. Let me show you what I mean, because this changes everything. Imagine 2 jobs. Both lose the exact same task to AI, say, writing a routine report. In the first job, that report was basically the whole point. Once it is automated, there is almost nothing left, and the job is in real danger. But in the second job, the report was just one small chore, and the real value was in the meeting afterwards. The judgment, the relationships, the standing behind the decision, same task removed, wildly different outcome. One channel dries up, the other just flows a little faster. So the question is never simply, can AI do this task? The question is, what is left in the bundle once it does, and is that leftover enough to build a life around? The future of any job is hiding in its leftovers. And now, here is the part that genuinely surprised the experts. When they studied this carefully, they found that the tasks AI struggles with most are not the ones we usually call high skill. They are often the most ordinary human, physical things. Folding laundry into a basket, walking into a cluttered, unfamiliar kitchen and finding a clean glass, calming a crying toddler, knowing, without being told, that the elderly man at the counter is lonely and just wants someone to talk to for a minute. This flips the old story on its head. For 100 years, we assumed machines would take the simple jobs first and the clever jobs last. The factory worker before the doctor, the cleaner before the writer. But it is turning out almost upside down. The pattern and guess machine is startlingly good at the clever desk tasks, the writing and the summarizing and the analyzing, and startlingly clumsy at the simple, bodily, social, real-world tasks. There is even a name people gave this puzzle long ago. They noticed that the things easiest for humans, like seeing and walking and grabbing a cup, are the hardest for machines, and the things hardest for humans, like heavy calculation, are the easiest for machines. The hard is easy, and the easy is hard. The river flows uphill from where we expected. let me make this human, because so far it has been all systems and water, and you cannot feel a system. Let me tell you about one person, the kind of person this is really about. Picture a woman, we will call her Maria, who has worked for years as a translator. Her job, the whole bundle, was turning documents from one language into another. For a long time, it was steady, respected work. Then, over just a few years, the machine got good, really good. It could translate a page in a heartbeat where she took an hour, and one morning, she sat at her kitchen table with a cold cup of tea and felt the rock land in her river. The fear was not abstract. It was a mortgage. It was her daughter's school. It was, what am I, if not this? Here is what actually happened to Maria, and it is neither the happy fairy tale nor the doom story. The cheap, fast machine translation did pour out everywhere. So companies suddenly translated far more than before. Things they never would have bothered paying a human to translate. Instructions and reviews and little messages, all of it. The river of translation work got enormous. But the channel Maria stood in, the slow, careful turning of one page at a time, that part shrank. So Maria had to move with the water, and it was not easy and it was not free. She did not stop being a translator. She became something the old job never quite had a name for. She became the person who takes the machine's fast, flat, slightly wrong translation and makes it sing. The one who catches that the machine translated a joke literally and killed it. The one who knows that in this culture you do not say it that way, that this word carries a sting the machine could not feel. She moved from doing the task to judging the task, from producing the words to being responsible for them. And here is the quiet, important truth in Maria's story. The move cost her something. There were lean months. There was new stuff to learn that she did not ask for and did not enjoy at first. Real people, in the real shuffle, feel that bump. We should never describe this river as gentle. Rivers carve canyons. But she was not replaced. The work was reshuffled, and so was she. The bundle changed, and she changed with it, with effort and some pain, and eventually, a kind of new footing. Now multiply Maria by a few billion. That is what is happening, quietly, in workplaces all over the world right now. Not jobs vanishing in a puff of smoke. Bundles being pulled apart and rebuilt. Tasks flowing out of one channel and into another. But here is a fair and sharp question. If this has all happened before, with the weaving machines and the others, why does this time feel so different? Why does it scare people in a way the old machines did not? Because, and this is the real edge of it, every machine before this one took over the muscles. The plow, the engine, the assembly line. They replaced our backs and our hands. And the comfort we always told ourselves was, oh yes, but machines can't think. The thinking jobs are safe. We had a wall, and behind the wall, we felt protected. This is the first machine that reaches over that wall. It does some of the thinking, not all of it, not the deepest kind, but the everyday pattern following thinking that filled so many safe desk jobs. So the people who felt safest are, for the first time, feeling the water at their feet. And there is something honest and a little humbling in that. For a long time, certain kinds of work looked down on the idea of being automated. As if it were a thing that happened to other people. The wall just moved. That is genuinely new, and it deserves to be taken seriously, not waved away. Let's go one level deeper still, because there is a piece of machinery here that explains why AI is powerful, but also why it is not the unstoppable job either the headlines promise. Remember, the machine learned by predicting the next piece from everything we have written. Which means, follow this carefully. It is brilliant at the average of what has already been done. It is a mirror of the past, an astonishingly polished mirror. But a mirror, it can produce the kind of report that has been written 1,000 times before because it has seen 1,000 of them. What it cannot do on its own is want something. It cannot care whether the report is true. It cannot decide that the whole report is asking the wrong question and should be thrown out. It has no skin in the game. It does not get fired if it is wrong. It does not get praised if it is right. It does not lie awake worrying about the customer. And that is not a small gap. That is the gap. Because almost every job that pays well is not really paid for producing the average thing. It is paid for judgment, for responsibility, for trust, for being the human who stands behind the decision when it matters. The machine can write the email. It cannot be sorry when the email was wrong. And someone, a human someone, has to be the one who is sorry, who answers for it, who can be trusted. That role does not vanish. If anything, as the machine floods the world with cheap average work, the human who can be trusted to judge it becomes more valuable, not less. So now we can say something solid, something you can actually carry around. AI is extremely good at tasks and surprisingly bad at jobs. It pulls tasks out of the bundle with ease. But a job is not just tasks. A job is tasks plus judgment plus responsibility plus the 1,000 tiny human hand-offs that hold a workplace together. and those for now stay on our side of the river. There is one more piece of machinery here, and it is the piece that turns this from a scary story into a hopeful one, so let me lay it out plainly. When a machine arrives next to a worker, it can do one of two things. It can replace a task, which is the part everyone fears, or it can make the worker's remaining tasks more valuable, which is the part everyone forgets. The fancy word for the second one is a complement, but forget the word and just picture it. A drill makes a carpenter's hands worth more, not less, because now the same skilled hands can build 10 times as much, and people will pay for what those hands can build. When the boring part of a task gets cheap, the human part next to it often gets more precious, because suddenly there is so much more of the work to go around, and only a person can finish it off. Here is a true story that shows this perfectly, and it surprises almost everyone who hears it. Years ago, banks installed machines on every corner that handed out cash, the cash machines you still use today. The obvious guess was that the people behind the counter, the tellers, would all be gone within a decade. The machine did their main task, handing out money faster and cheaper, around the clock. And yet, follow the water, because each branch now needed fewer tellers to run. Branches got cheaper to open, so banks opened far more of them. And the tellers who remained stopped being money counters and became something more like advisors, the humans you talk to about a loan, a problem, a plan, the trust part of the bundle. For a long stretch, the number of those workers did not collapse. It held and even grew, while the job itself quietly transformed underneath them. The machine took the task. The river found a wider valley. The bundle was reborn. That is the pattern hiding under the fear, and once you see it everywhere. The machine rarely arrives as a replacement. It usually arrives as a tool that makes the human next to it able to reach further. The question is only ever whether you are the kind of worker the new tool reaches past, or the kind it reaches with. But, and here is our next open loop, I have made this sound a little too clean, a little too comforting, because there is a way this river can flood. There is a real edge here, and you deserve to see it. Let me show you how the system can break. The danger is not that AI does any single job perfectly. The danger is speed. The danger is everything moving at once. Think about Maria again. She had a few years to shuffle. The translation channel shrank slowly enough that she could learn the new skill, painfully but possibly, before the old one ran dry. Now imagine the rock falls in not once, but every few months, bigger each time. Imagine the river changing course so fast that by the time you have learned to fish in the new channel, that channel has already moved again. That is the genuine risk. Not a world with no work. A world where the work moves faster than people can move with it. Because here is a truth about humans that no chart ever captures. We do not retrain overnight. We have roots. We have a town we love, a family in one place, a skill we spent 20 years getting good at, an age at which starting over feels like falling. The river does not care about any of that. The river just flows to the lowest, easiest path. And when it moves faster than the people on its banks, that is, when a technology that should have lifted everyone instead leaves a lot of people standing in a dry riverbed, watching the water rush somewhere they cannot follow. And there is a second way it can break, quieter and sneakier. It is the danger of the machine being good enough to fool us, but not good enough to be right. Remember, it predicts the convincing next word, not the true one. It will hand you a report that reads beautifully and is confidently, completely wrong with the same calm voice it uses when it is right. If we get lazy, if we let the cheap average workflow unchecked, because it looks so polished, we build our houses on sand. The very thing that makes it useful, that it sounds like us, is the thing that makes it dangerous, when no human is left to say, wait, that is not true. So who keeps the system alive? Who keeps the river from flooding the town? This is the offbeat, and it is not who you would guess. It is not the engineers building bigger machines. It is the ordinary people, in millions of small acts, deciding every day where to point the water. The teacher who learns the new tool and teaches it to 30 kids who will not be afraid of it. The boss who chooses to use the freed up time to do better work instead of just cutting people. The worker who, like Maria, grits their teeth and learns the new channel. The whole quiet, unglamorous human effort of moving with the water instead of drowning in it, that effort is doing the real work of the future, and almost nobody claps for it. Now let's zoom out, because I want this to change something about your ordinary tomorrow. Tomorrow morning, you are going to encounter the river without noticing it. The customer service reply that came back suspiciously fast and suspiciously smooth, that was the machine taking a task out of a bundle. The job at asking for someone who can work alongside AI tools, that is a bundle being written in real time. The friend who says their work changed completely this year, but they are somehow still doing it. That is the channel moving faster while they run to keep up. It is all the same river. Once you see it, you cannot unsee it. The world stops being jobs that are safe and jobs that are doomed and becomes what it actually is. A vast field of tasks constantly being sorted into. Machine can, and only human can, and re-sort it again next year. And that shift in how you see it is not just clever, it is useful, because if a job is a bundle of tasks, then the smartest thing any of us can do for ourselves and for our kids is to stop asking, is my job safe? And start asking, which of my tasks are the human ones? The judgment, the care, the trust, the being responsible, the reading, the room, the standing behind it. Pour yourself into those, the tasks that sit furthest from the machine's reach, and you are not standing in the channel that dries up. You are standing where the river will always need to flow, because those tasks are the ones water cannot do. Here is the deepest version of the truth, the one for the expert listening, the one I promised we would climb to. Technology has never, not once in all of history, reduced the total amount of human work to nothing, even though every single new machine looked, in its moment, like it would. And the reason is almost philosophical. Human wants are bottomless. The moment a machine satisfies one desire cheaply, we invent 3 new desires to chase. We are not running out of things we want done. We never have. So the work does not run out. It moves. It transforms. It hides in places we have not built jobs for yet. The river is not draining. It is rerouting. And it has been rerouting around rock after rock for 10,000 years, and the valley below has only grown more full of water, not less. So, will AI replace jobs? Here is the honest answer, the one that is truer than yes and truer than no. AI will not replace your job, but it will almost certainly reach into your job, pull out some of its tasks, and hand the bundle back to you lighter and stranger than before. Some people will catch the lighter bundle and do more, better, freer work than they ever could. Some people, if the water moves too fast and no one helps them shuffle, will be left standing in a channel that ran dry, and that is not their failure. It is ours, all of ours, for letting the river move faster than we cared for the people on its banks. The machine decides which tasks it can do. But where the work flows next, who gets carried and who gets stranded, how fast we let it move, and whether we build bridges for the Marias of the world, that is not decided by the machine at all. That is decided by us. It always was. And that brings me, gently, all the way back home. Because when you really look at where all this work flows, you find something almost tender hiding underneath. This giant planet-sized system, this trillion words a second river of machine work, in the end it touches down as thousands of small, human hand-offs happening right near you. The local shop that now answers messages faster, but still needs a real person to remember your name. The neighbor who learned a new skill and is quietly teaching it to the street. The small business finding its feet again as the water reroutes. That is where the future actually lands, not in a headline on your street, in the small connections between the people and places around you. And that is exactly the idea behind a project called Hyperlocal. The belief that this enormous wave of change is really lived out in the small local world right where you are, in the hand-offs between real people and real places near you, and that helping that local world connect and work better is how ordinary people don't just survive the river, but learn to steer it. So if any of this made you see your own street a little differently, come along with us. Subscribe, stay curious, and take a look at Hyperlocal, because the future isn't something that happens to your town, it's something your town gets to build. So the next time you hear that a machine somewhere just wrote a trillion words while you blinked, don't picture your job disappearing. Picture a river hitting a rock and quietly carving 100 new channels. And ask yourself the only question that has ever really mattered. Not where the water leaves, where the water flows next, and whether you'll be standing there, ready when it arrives.